Let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
The purchasing power dropped by about $3,000 under Joe Biden because the wages didn't keep up with prices. Under President Trump, it's already gone up by about $1,200. We understand that people still feel the pain of the high prices. We're closing the gap and filling the gap fast.
Yep, Trump team mobilized to make the economy work for everyone quickly. If they're not successful, midterms will be a electoral bloodbath.
Number 2.
The question is, what is the future of Democratic leadership? Who is going to be effective? And most Democrats around the country just don't think that person is Chuck Schumer. I mean, he doesn't inspire confidence. He's not bold. He's out of touch with the grassroots.
Ro Khanna weighing in. Dems in disarray. Infighting has hit new highs. Not only talking about who's running the country, but they are running to socialism. The party is actually embracing it instead of running from it. Sadly, we must start selling capitalism to counter it.
Number 1.
I said, why don't we just pay this money directly to the people of our country and let them buy their own health insurance? I am talking to some Democrats right now about doing that. People love it.
Playing it smart. Finally, both sides talking about healthcare in an intelligent way. Might we finally be able to fix some or all of our system, which affects every American? All sides seem ready to admit Obamacare isn't working. Marc and Lawrence, welcome. This is a reunion a little bit.
It is.
You interviewed him on Fox and
Yeah,
Friends.
we just did this like 3 hours ago, and now we're going to do a replay.
There you go.
Well, this is going to be a whole half hour. I'm going to play a role. So that'll change things.
Part of the conversation.
Right,
Why don't
I
we
mean,
just kick him out and take the show over.
Yeah, take it over.
I mean, no
need
doubt
Kilmeade.
about it. No, but I think you need some testosterone. So that's why I'm here.
Oh,
all right?
there you go. That's
all right, so let's talk about healthcare. This is some staggering numbers. Do you know the average deductible for Obamacare is $6,000? Can you imagine $6,000? Do you know that part of the reason this is all falling apart is not because of Republicans. Aetna pulled out of Obamacare. They expected to lose $400 million. They said, screw that. 2016, United dropped out after losing $1 billion. Humana dropped out in 2018. They said the pool of sick people didn't compare to the pool of healthy ones. Didn't make sense. We're a publicly traded company. Cigna is only active in a handful of states. So the competition was supposed to drive the prices down. They all bailed out, Lawrence.
I realize that I'm going to be in a minority of this because I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. With the exception of the president's idea to give the American people their money to figure out what they're going to do with their health care, I think it's a political loser to touch it. Every time Republicans have tried to deal with health care, it hasn't gone so well for them. So I don't think that they should touch this issue. It should be about affordability. You shouldn't make the next election about the health care.
So the problem is that we're not touching Obamacare. None of this is part of Obamacare. Literally, this is a part of the American Rescue Plan, the Biden COVID plus-ups. Ronald Reagan famously said there's nothing so near eternal life as a temporary federal program. This is supposed to be a temporary federal program. But I think we have to find a way to solve the problem without extending these tax credits. I think the president has come up with the perfect solution, which is don't give the money to the insurance companies as a subsidy, give it to the American people. And what people are missing is he could do this right away without the Democrats, because all he needs to do is do another reconciliation bill. He's allowed to do 2 reconciliation bills this year because the Democrats didn't pass a budget before. So just do a mini reconciliation bill with Trump checks, where you give them a rebate for the tariff revenue, give them money to subsidize their health care directly, and then challenge the Democrats to vote against it and say, if they vote no, then it's like you voted against subsidizing health care. And the Democrats wanted to give the money to the insurance companies. We wanted to give the money to you, and we did it, and they voted no. And you take the issue away from them.
I think it makes sense, but I want to be optimistic, and Lawrence would say naive.
No, I'm not going to say naive. I just think that's the only way you touch the issue of healthcare without getting into the minefield of the debates of fixing certain elements.
But here's what I'm going to say. You ready? I'm going to say that I watched every Sunday show, and being that the shutdown's over and the election's a year away, you have a chance to do something on a bipartisan level. They're going to have a closed-door meeting, like the committee meeting with Cassidy leading it, and Barrasso is obviously a doctor, and I feel less optimistic knowing Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are also on that. But I do sense that everybody knows that all the rates are going up, Obamacare is not working, and I'm wondering if they can agree on certain things to get this across the line in a bipartisan way. being that we're far enough away from the election, and we do have a president that said, I heard from Democrats.
Yeah.
I was surprised even by that soundbite. That helps me on this. But I watched Tom Suozzi yesterday. I watched Bill Cassidy yesterday. I watched Don Bacon yesterday. And both sides said, Tim Kaine too. All right. We know that the subsidies aren't going to solve the problem. Even if you gave the subsidies to them, the healthcare still sucks. The deductible's too high. So the healthcare accounts, while getting rid of fraud, for example, people paying 400% above poverty line should no longer be eligible. That's 10% of the people receiving it. They agree to get rid of that. Okay, fine. Then there's other ways to attack fraud. Then he says, what about the subsidies? Well, I'm not going to give you subsidies. What we'll do is be able to put them into healthcare accounts and then see what Democrats want to do about this. Because if you get doctors and healthcare experts and not politicians, like, of course, you don't see the squad or anybody anywhere near this.
But Brian, we both agree that the Democrats have said that they're going to make the next election about healthcare, right? They pretty much said this is going to be this. They're not going to want to give the president, no matter how you spin it, whether it's the American people get a win, they're not going to give him a win on healthcare if they're making it already in the next election about healthcare.
And also they're going to demand a whole bunch of concessions that we don't want to give them.
100%.
So if you do it as a reconciliation bill, there's nothing that says a Democrat can't vote for the reconciliation bill. It's just you don't need 60 votes. Right? So let's say 6 Democrats come along and vote for this. Okay, then great. Then it's bipartisan. You just need a couple of Democrats to make it bipartisan.
And what about
why let them strangle it? And also, I agree with Lawrence. We don't want to get into a whole debate about the reforming the healthcare system. It's incredibly complicated. What they want is Medicare for all. They want socialism, right? So we're not going to find middle ground on that. But what you can do is give people subsidies for their healthcare, and you can do it before the holidays.
You don't think a Democrat would sign on to that?
I think they would.
Okay.
I think if you did a reconciliation bill where we created Trump accounts, where you gave people a subsidy to pay for their health care purchases, and they can go out and buy whatever health insurance they want. Doesn't have to be Obamacare. It could be subsidy for their for other insurance. I think some Democrats might vote for that.
Yeah,
so
especially when it would pass anyway through reconciliation.
I think Fetterman would vote for it.
100%.
Yeah, but what about in any of those 8? Like, for example, Gary Peters is retiring, Durbin's retiring. He's not reasonable, but I guess Jean Shaheen has shown that she's somewhat
voting for that. Yeah.
You can bring them on and negotiate with them, but what you don't want to do is give Chuck Schumer and AOC and Bernie Sanders a seat at the table, which is if you try and do it through the regular process, you give them a seat at the table, and you need them.
So I want you to see with this respect of Ivani Chen tends to be somewhat of a moderate out on the West Coast. He was on Meet the Press, cut 15.
I think affordability is going to be the key issue going into the midterm elections. We've seen that in poll after poll. And generally speaking, in American elections, the economy tends to be the top issue. But for healthcare to be a problem for Republicans, it's been a vexing problem, I think, for the last 15 years. The reality is Democrats open the door. Republicans need to walk through it. They need to present some ideas that actually move this discussion forward. By the way, extending the ACA-enhanced subsidies would not have made affordability better in the long run. So Republicans do have this opportunity now to present some ideas and actually get on the front foot on this issue.
Am I the only one who agrees with him?
No, I just think the affordability conversation is more than healthcare, right? It's basic goods on the day-to-day basis. And I think us making it about healthcare is walking into the Democrats' trap. They want to make it about healthcare. People care about their grocery prices, their gas bill, that. Now, some of this stuff is on the way. The president passed tax reform, and we haven't felt that yet. Drilling is happening, but the oil hasn't been refined just yet. So it's going to take some time of that. But the president needs to continue to make it about things on a day-to-day basis. That's my view.
But if, for example, healthcare is not working, but so many people who voted for Trump, it's not working for them. So if you just say, hey, Obamacare sucks and I'm not going to bail you out, a lot of those people go, that's politics, but can you help me out today? Trump's out there. He's a blue collar guy. He's a blue collar president. So he sees as an opportunity to go in there. You could just admit it. Obamacare is not working, or else I wouldn't be here.
Right.
If it was working, it would have been off the table. And it's so easy to figure out who voted for it. All Democrats. So I just think if you go in there and you try, hey, I tried to fix your program. I tried to get in with those subsidies. If they go, we're not going to go for healthcare accounts. This is what Jean Shaheen said. It's not going to be quick enough. And we just need a quick okay when it comes to these subsidies. And it's going to be harder to get these healthcare accounts set up and then get it all through. Cassidy came back and says, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy to put the subsidies through. Even if I said, I'm going to start off with the subsidies. So what I want is doctors, healthcare experts like Rick Scott, going in there and say, listen, I know what it's like from the hospital perspective. I want the doctors. I want the insurance in there. I don't like vilifying any portion of this mess. I don't think there's necessarily any bad guys. So it's very complicated, but all I want is the best healthcare system. I want the quality. If anything's hurting the quality, that's when you can count me out.
Yeah, Lawrence is right. You're wrong.
Can you kill his mic there? Are we on a delay?
There we go.
I mean, back in a moment.
This is the lowest the Supreme Court has been rated, and if you believe as I do that we need faith in not just the executive or the congressional branch of government, but the Supreme Court, and it is not written anywhere in the Constitution you have to have 9. That's just a number they came up with. I think they went from 7 to 9, but I'm not sure. And I think the way to cure that very quickly is expand it to 13 and get some balance on the court. The Republicans won the popular vote, I think, 2 out of the last 8 elections, and they have 2/3 of the Supreme Court justices. They have 6 out of 9, and that's absurd. It's a distortion.
So that is James Carville, obviously, on with Kayleigh McEnany over the weekend, saying, hey, my party's not in power, but I want to get rid of the filibuster, and I'll tell you exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to add 2 states, he goes on to say that, and I'm going to pack the court to 13, Lawrence.
Well, to that point, though, Brian, do they realize this is not helpful? They're essentially making the president's argument. His argument the entire time, I don't want to get rid of the filibuster, but what I'm telling you is I want to get rid of it if the Democrats plan on using it right after I'm president. So he's saying we might as well get rid of it now, have some leverage. Like I said, I've been very transparent about that. I go back and forth on this. Some days I'm like, yeah, get rid of it. And sometimes I'm like, we got to hold our ground right here.
Marc.
I'm not sure that they don't want him to get rid of the filibuster, the Democrats, because what is he going to do? He's going to pass through everything on his agenda. The Americans kind of like divided government. They like a little bit of gridlock, and so I think they're going to see it as 2-1 party, and they think that that'll have a backlash. And then they're going to take power, and they will use it to repeal everything that Trump does, because what they do, they pass spending and entitlements, which we never repeal. The reason we still have Obamacare is once you create a government entitlement, you never get rid of it. Our stuff you can repeal. And so they'll repeal everything he does. Then they'll expand the size of the Senate. They'll add Puerto Rico and D.C. as states, maybe even Guam, which was Democratic. They want statehood. You could have 6 Democratic seats, which means we'll never get the Senate back. They'll expand the size of the House, which means that they will get more seats in the House because their states are more populous. That'll expand the size of the Electoral College in blue states, which means we can't win back the presidency. Then they'll pack the Supreme Court, and that will support with liberal justices. It will support all their constitutional overreach, and then they'll pass their agenda. They'll have the Green New Deal. They'll have Medicare for all. They'll basically pass the Mamdani agenda, and we won't be able to repeal it. So they're perfectly happy to see the filibuster go.
I continue to say, Brian, I'm not sure that the Supreme Court is going to allow them to pack the
Can the Supreme Court stop them?
They can say it's unconstitutional. They can say it's illegal.
Could they?
But it's not.
It can be illegal. It can be a legal challenge, and when you have institutionalists there, I mean, we can make the argument back and forth all day, but the court could rule and say it's not legal, but especially when you have institutionalists.
The problem is that it's not in the Constitution. It's the Senate rules, and the Senate rules the Senate can make whatever rules it wants. And so, unfortunately, they couldn't overturn it because that's the Senate's prerogative. They would defer to the Senate. But what they want is they want to pack the court so they have a bunch of justices who would do exactly that for them, because they want liberal activist judges who are focused on the outcome. And the problem with it is that once they do all these things, you can never repeal it because a Supreme Court justice serves for life once you put him on the court. There's never been a state that had statehood repealed. So once they make all these institutional changes, they're forever. So I just think this is like one of the last few institutional guardrails we have against a one-party state. And if we get rid of this guardrail, it will be a Democratic one-party state for a long, long time, and that could lead to all sorts of problems.
I don't think Carville's playing it correct for his party, by the way. By coming out and just saying this, he is like bait unless
saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah. I mean, instead of saying, well, why do we know that? We don't know that for sure. He took that argument away from anyone who is going to bat for leaving the filibuster. So that really helps Trump's argument to get rid of it. But real quick, I got two foreign policy guys that understand it. Venezuela, we have this unprecedented military presence in the region. Over the weekend, the president said Maduro's government has reached out to him. They might have conversations. What do you think those conversations are going to be like, Lawrence?
About the peaceful way to leave. I mean, it's pretty much the president's done. When you send that amount of force to the region, Mark, what percentage of our Navy?
10% of the Navy
is there. So, I mean, this is not a president that's playing games. There's only an off ramp of leaving. The question is, the conversation is, where is he going to go?
He's close to making a decision. What decision do you think he's close to making?
Well, first of all, on the legality of what he's doing, Barack Obama killed 560 terrorists with drones, including an American citizen. Including Anwar al-Awlaki, who was the leader of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, was an American citizen. So anybody who's saying the president doesn't have the authority to do this, talk to Barack Obama.
And by the way, there were other people that got killed that would just happen to be with that terrorists too.
Exactly. So this authority is absolutely clear. He's declared the cartels foreign terrorist organizations. He has all the legal authority he needs to do it. The problem in Venezuela is that it's not just cartels; it's a narco-terrorist regime. So it's a socialist country, but at the top, they're narco-capitalists. Maduro is a narco-capitalist, and they are all involved in the drug trade. And so you can't stop the drug trade in Venezuela unless you change the regime.
So Senator Murphy goes, well, they don't make fentanyl there, they make cocaine there, and they go to the Caribbean en route to Europe. So that's real quick. What does a military strike look like? Do you hit the cartels' drug-making factory? Do you hit the armies? Barracks? What does an attack look like, Mark?
Yes.
Both.
I mean, whatever target, all those targets are legitimate. I mean, it's and what you do is I think what you want to do is you want to put military targets on the table, because then the military might turn to Maduro and say, hey, skedaddle.
So you tell him.
100%.
So you say, when we meet, let me just give you an idea what I'm about to do.
100%. I mean, pretty much there's already the largest bounty on him than any other person ever in our history.
Do you know if Assad has bunk beds? He could stay with Assad and his family? Because in Russia, I mean, we got a lot of people in Russia now.
As long as it's not on a high floor so they don't fall out of a window.
Yeah, we know that. The Russians are great at that. Marc, Thiessen, Lawrence Jones, thanks for putting beside you the rivalry that you've had and making my show better.
So much of a rivalry.
With me right now is Gordon Chang. Gordon, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Brian.
So, Gordon, we watched Kash Patel go and visit China, meet with his counterpart, and now he's optimistic. They understand the chemicals and precursors. We're going to be all over it, and we're serious this time. And here's what he had to say about that meeting.
So you believe that the Chinese will keep their commitment here, and you think we will see an immediate impact then?
I do. We've already seen an immediate impact. And look, Maria, I don't think anyone has covered China better than you have. And I understand the skepticism. But I do also believe in President Trump's leadership to say, look, we have to engage with them and come to agreements where we can with them, especially if it saves American lives. Why wouldn't we? We're not going to get to 100% on 100%. But if we can save tens of thousands of American lives, then it was worth it. And I think we're already seeing those results. And at least on the fentanyl front, they have committed to this. They've kept their word on this. And we are saving American lives because of this once-in-a-lifetime historic engagement by President Trump with the Chinese.
Okay. Gordon, what do you think?
Well, I certainly hope that Director Patel is correct. We got to remember that he got a promise from Xi Jinping. Now, Xi Jinping made a promise to stop fentanyl to President Obama in 2016, to President Trump in 2018, and to President Biden in 2023. And of course, he's violated all of those promises. And, Patel said that this time we're serious, and I certainly hope that's the case. The other thing we've got to be concerned about, Brian, is that China can, instead of sending the precursors for fentanyl, send the precursors for something even more deadly, and that is the netazines, which China's already been fueling a crisis. So there's a lot to go here. I am confident that President Trump is going to hammer the Chinese if they don't honor their promises. But this, of course, is going to be just wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, the focus is certainly there. They'll only do something if it's in their interest, obviously. So we know that it's in our interest to get off rare earth, ever dependence on China. And I'm hearing that there's almost like a Marshall Plan to use other opportunities, including opportunities here, to mine and refine rare earth. And I'm hearing that we could do it in maybe 18 months. How valuable would that be to our national security?
Oh, that's absolutely critical, Brian. And the president deserves kudos for this because he does have a Marshall Plan and it's got a lot of elements to it. And I believe that if it's not 18 months, it'd be 2 years, 3 years, we will be free of the Chinese. And that is going to be something that is one of their two important points of leverage on us. The other are pharmaceuticals. That's also something that we need a Marshall Plan on.
Wall Street Journal story last week didn't get a lot of attention that said the Chinese are holding back any rare earth that helps our military. Scott Bessent was asked this by Maria. Here's what he said, cut 36.
Is China holding back rare earth magnets from companies tied to the U.S. military right now?
Yeah, Maria, I think that Wall Street Journal reporting is not very accurate. We haven't even finished the agreement, which we hope to have done by Thanksgiving. And I am confident that post our meeting in Korea between the two leaders, President Trump, President Xi, that China will honor their agreements. Xi Jinping has great respect for President Trump. The meeting was conducted very high level, and I am confident that they will honor their agreement. And if they don't, we have lots of levers.
So who's right, the Wall Street Journal or Scott?
I don't know the answer to that question, Brian. A couple things. There's a White House fact sheet dated November 1. And that fact sheet says that the Chinese agreed to remove their October 9th end user validation program on rare earths, which is what people in the Wall Street Journal have been talking about, that validation program will be used to prevent rare earths from going to companies that deal with the U.S. defense industry. The second thing is that the fact sheet said that China would actually remove all rare earth restrictions imposed after 2023. In other words, in the last 23 months. So we'll just see. And this is something that is, again, it's day by day. I hope the Treasury Secretary is correct. But, this is verify only or trust only after verifying.
Gordon, when does China live up to its word? And what circumstances?
Only when there's no choice but to live up to its word. I mean, they've violated just about every agreement with us. And I can't think of an agreement that they've actually honored. So this is time for the U.S. to use its leverage. President Trump knows that. I think that Trump has been giving the Chinese an off-ramp to sort of come back into the international community. And that's very generous of President Trump. It's probably the right approach. But at some point, generosity has to move beyond that into no tolerance for Chinese cheating.
There's a belief in the administration that they could pry China away from Russia. Do you hear the same thing? I am not optimistic of that. Are you?
I'm absolutely not optimistic, and that view is naive. Yes, Nixon did pry China from the Soviet Union, but that's already after Mao Zedong split with Joseph Stalin and Nikita Khrushchev. Right now, Vladimir Putin is absolutely critical to Xi Jinping's plans to disrupt the world. These two leaders, Putin and Xi Jinping, they're very close. They see the world in the same terms, they have the same objectives, and they identify the same enemy, which is us. So no, we can't pry them apart. We can maybe take Russia down. That's extraordinarily dangerous, but that's the only way to separate Moscow from Beijing at this point.
They're terrible consumers. They have no social safety net. They're not buying anything. They have all these incentives, and their Cyber Mondays never stop. It's not working. They need us as consumers more than ever. Give me an idea of what is the state of their economy today.
It is not growing at the 4.8% pace that they reported for the third quarter of this year. It's probably zero, maybe a little bit above, maybe a little bit below. We're seeing all sorts of underlying indicators that show the Chinese economy is flatlining. So, for instance, China right now has never been more export dependent in its history. In October, exports fell 1.1%. But the big story there, Brian, is that exports to the U.S. fell 25%. We are the world's consumer market. We account for about 34% of global consumer spending. China needs us right now. And the sales that they have been making to the global south and to other places to compensate for not making sales to us, those have very thin or no margins at all. So Chinese exporters are hurting, even though their volumes have sort of remained steady. They absolutely dependent on President Trump's forgiveness.
How far will they go in Venezuela to protect their evil ally?
Well, that's a great question. We saw that last week they announced a trade deal with Venezuela and China where there would be no tariffs from either China or Venezuela on 400 tariff codes. This means that China will dominate and decimate Venezuela's manufacturers. And there are not that many of them, by the way, because Venezuela's really only export are crude oil and petroleum coke and other petroleum products. I don't think China has the military might to actually stop us, but China can do something elsewhere in the world to divert our attention. And right now we're seeing some very belligerent Chinese activity against both the Philippines and against Japan. So that's how China will help Venezuela, by taking our attention away from the Caribbean.
We got to, quick as we can, get our assets back to where they belong and just get a resolve there in Venezuela. We're certainly showing enough muscle. Maybe they'll leave on their own. I want you to hear this other big story is using AI to hack into our intelligence and into different people. So they have the cyber threat. It was done. AI essentially was given a command to penetrate into the highest levels of American intelligence, and it was successful. Congressman Don Bacon is on the China committee, a former, I believe, general in the Army, Cut 38.
China has replaced Russia as the most formidable cyber threat. They have much higher technology. They are using AI, which gives you a lot more capability in finding weaknesses in your adversaries' cyber defenses. What concerns me more than anything, while China is attacking us every single day, and Russia, we've had no commander in charge of Cyber Command for over 8 months. You know, the White House or the president fired the Cyber Command commander over 8 months ago and has not replaced him.
By the way, I had no idea about that, but using AI to immediately hack us, that's exactly what everyone worried about.
Yes. And you know, Brian, here, the story is not what the Chinese are doing. The story is that we don't have robust cyber defenses. And it's not just the problem of 2025. This problem goes back decades, where we know what the Chinese are doing. We know the Chinese are extraordinarily successful, and we do not defend ourselves. And this is not just cyber and AI. This is all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, this is a U.S. issue. It's on us, Brian. It's a U.S. issue, not a China one.
Absolutely. So, well, I guess we're going to see what happens real quick to see if there's any move taking place. But we also know that China, if they cut off Russia, that war ends the next day. So I'm curious to see how much they really want to deal with us. I know the president puts a lot of stock in his personal relationships, and he says that one of his takeaways were how unnerved all his people are around him. They are scared to death of him. So when these trade delegations show up with President Xi, he says these people are his colleagues, his subordinates are practically shaking. Can you give me an idea of how he's ruling that country?
Well, the question is, you know, that's absolutely true, what you just said. We're not exactly sure how much power Xi Jinping has right now. I think that he's lost substantial influence over the Chinese military. He has still control of China's civilians, but there's a lot of turmoil. There are a lot of purges, and that means the Chinese political system is not exactly stable right now, which means it's even more dangerous than it's been in the past, which is the reason why these incidents against the Philippines and Japan can really spiral out of control. China is in a state of turmoil right now. And you just said the most important thing. The Chinese regime right now is not stable.
Taiwan is an example of what China could be. That little island with very few natural resources is thriving, a hub of technology and freedom. That must be one of the hardest things for Xi to deal with every day, knowing that his people know what their life could be. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. The people in Taiwan don't think they're Chinese, but the people in China think the people in Taiwan are Chinese. And because of that, Taiwan poses an existential threat to the Communist Party, because the people in the mainland say, we're Chinese, they're Chinese. They get to govern themselves. They got a successful society. They're doing better than we are. What's wrong with us? And, that narrative just unnerves Xi Jinping right now. And it makes China even less stable than it would otherwise be.
Gordon Chang, thanks so much. Hey, welcome back, everyone. One of the big topics in everybody's life is oil and gas. How much is it going to cost to put a gallon of gas in your car? And if people want a tax break, the easiest way to do it, since most people are in a car during the day, is to charge them less for gas. And one thing the president has made clear, he wants to drill. He wants to drill everywhere. I know to a degree, the oil and gas business doesn't want to drill too much, because if it goes below, I think, $54 a barrel, it doesn't make much money for them. But they are looking to explore while still having to deal with environmentalist limitations, although things are starting to open up, I understand, in Alaska. Well, the big question is, if oil is coming down around the globe, why is gas not coming down more than a nickel or 10 cents since President Trump took over the last 9 months? The other big question that we had, that we took some calls for last week, was people said to me, if you want to get the prices down at grocery stores and your delivery and wherever you shop online, if you want to get it down, you got to get the diesel price down, because most of these 18-wheelers almost all of them run on diesel. Of course, there's some on electric, which are not going too well. Gary Bevers heard that. He's president of Bevers & Company, Downstream Petroleum Solutions, and he's an expert in the area and joins us now. Gary, great to see you. Maybe you can help us here. How is Trump doing? Why is it that the price of oil is down per barrel, but we're not necessarily feeling it at the pump?
Well, the market's complicated, for one thing. There are 5 or 6 components that make up the price of gasoline at the pump. The part about crude that everybody's talking about, crude going down, it at best makes up 48, 50% of the price. Taxes are 20 to 30%, and it's varied by state.
So that's why I go to L.A. and it's $6.10, and I just saw $2.89 on Long Island over the weekend.
Yes, sir. All-in taxes in California are over $1.20 something a gallon. A little bit different, lower for gasoline, higher for diesel fuel, because you referenced diesel. Texas, I'm paying $2.40, $2.60 a gallon for gas. California, high $4, sometimes $5.
So what has changed since Trump took over?
Well, the regulations impact the fuel. It impacts a lot of things, but particularly on crude. So being able to go drill. But drilling is not instant. You open up fields, it's a year before they're drilling there, sometimes longer than that. Once they drill it and bring it in, there's a transportation to get it to a refinery. It sits on a pipeline, could be 3 months, could be 2 months. Some of it's shipped by rail from up in the Keystone area where we did not build a pipeline. That was the big impact there. Makes the freight cost more, makes the transportation take longer. So even when crude goes down, there's a delay, but get the crude in the refining. From the refining has to go to a mid-transportation point, ultimately ends up at a gas station, right? So that's months of delay. So the cycle, and I could send you some slides that would make your head hurt, but it shows there's not an exact correlation between crude price and refined product, which is the mid part, and then the final retail.
How much of a challenge is it that we haven't built a refinery in years? And is refinery and the lack of refining capacity holding us back?
No, it's a myth. We haven't built a new refinery. We don't need them. The refineries we have, it's approximately 140 some odd refineries, but we expand the footprint on every single refinery. So every year, the production of refined capacity goes up in the United States, and on the same footprint, and 40% of it approximately is in the Houston, Louisiana area. So it's on the Gulf Coast. So no, that's just a myth. There are a lot of myths about oil and gas, and most of them are definitely myths and they're false.
I want to get to natural gas and fracking, but I do want you to hear what Marc Mullin said when I asked him about diesel. Let's listen. I got a lot of calls last week about diesel. Diesel's for the trucks in. Diesel's above gas. And I think it's because of the sulfur regulations, because sulfur's bad for the environment, and they got all these sulfur regulators on. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Well, I drive a diesel every single day. Before we were in Congress, we had a whole bunch of trucks, semis on the road every day. Diesel has been higher than gasoline now for almost a little over a decade because of environmental requirements. There's a lot that can be done with that. I've talked to Secretary Duffy about this. I've talked to Lee Zeldin about this multiple times about what we can do about regulations to bring down that cost.
So, you want to enlighten us, Gary, on diesel? Do you with Senator Marc Mullins on the money on that?
Sure. Diesel used to be less expensive than gas. My dad used to drive trucks. My uncles drive trucks. They all like diesel trucks. In 2006, they changed the regulation to take the sulfur out of diesel. Cost a lot of money for refineries to build these units called hydrocrackers. That's to treat and remove the sulfur. That added a cost. People say it's only temporary, but it's not. It's a permanent refining cost. But there are other components of it. Everything in the fuel business is supply and demand. Demand for diesel used to be less than gasoline. Gasoline was the big demand product. But and we joke about calling it the Amazon effect during the pandemic, we use so much trucking, and trucks all use diesel. The number of electric trucks on the road is nil. I mean, if they're there, they don't make a statistical difference, right? But the big thing about diesel is a global product. We ship diesel out of the country. So when you see those crude prices, when they talk about WTI, that is what it is in the market, not what it is locally, not here, not in our refineries, but what's being the price driven. And like China uses a massive amount of diesel just to generate electricity. So does Mexico, by the way. So it's a product that has multiple uses. Demand for diesel went up. Supply is limited. A barrel of oil produces maybe 18% diesel and about almost double that of gasoline naturally. So for every barrel you're going to refine, you're going to get more gasoline, less diesel.
Gary Bevers is with us now from Downstream Petroleum Solutions. Gary, when it comes to diesel and burning into the environment, can you tell me about the sulfur, when the environmentalists got a hold of this, and were they right to try to limit it? Is there anything we can do that wouldn't affect the price while being conscious of the environment?
Well, number one, there's a lot of diesel that is already low sulfur. So it's just produced that way. It comes out of the ground. Good. In some areas, there's a bunch of different grades. And in some areas, it comes out high sulfur. I'm not sure that sulfur actually is. It's definitely, I don't think it's a carcinogen. So I don't know that it's bad for the environment, just like CO2, carbon dioxide. They say that's bad for the environment, yet you and I exhale carbon dioxide every day, right? So again, a lot of myth, but it was decided to take out sulfur. They did that. Another product of that is it was high in lubricity. You have to have lubricant in fuels or it burns up the inside of an engine. So now every gallon of diesel, not only does it cost more to refine it, you get less production, and you have to add a lubricity agent, which is an added cost for every gallon of diesel to put the additive back that was taken out with the sulfur. Not saying it's bad to take out sulfur, but there's a cause and effect to every regulation. Right. And nobody looks at the total effects on regulation.
So what do you hope, what would you advise Doug Burgum, Chris Wright to do? Well, if they said, hey, Gary, how do I responsibly get diesel prices down? What would you tell them?
Well, they come down. Again, I can send you charts. You can see in the year 2008, because supply and demand are the biggest pressures. Regulation has a lot to do it. Number one, stop all the ridiculous taxes. You should see on a fuel bill, there are like some fuel bills have 27 fees and taxes. Wow. There's only supposed to be excise tax, right? Federal and local. Then there's a usage tax called IFTA, which applies to diesel, IFTA, I-F-T-A, and that makes diesel taxes higher. I mean, if you look at California and you're going to have $1.20 in taxes, and we want to have fuel down in the dollar range, because in 2008, at the beginning of the middle of the year, end of the year, we started at almost 3, went to 4, and got down to $1.63. So on average, now, again, those are averages because every part of the country has a different basis cost, depending on where you are. I'm in Houston, Texas. We get to have cheap fuel.
So overall, do you think that this administration gets it and will do everything possible to get those prices down? Is there any frustration you have with the current administration?
None. No. I mean, the idea, it's a commodity. Right now, one of the bigger drivers of diesel fuel being high is the shutdown of Russian refineries. So there is a shortage of diesel and there's a demand for diesel. There's a global demand for diesel that's up. So anybody that can figure out how to change demand will be a genius and make a lot of money, but you can't. You can't predict how much people are going to drive cars. I mean, we know elasticity. If the price gets really high, people drive a little less. But people like me, the cost of fuel is not something I think about. Plenty of people do, but I'm not one of them.
All right, Gary, when it comes to fracking and natural gas, we seem to have some customers that want it more than ever, especially in Europe. They seem to be open to it outside Hungary. Can you give us an idea of what the natural gas market looks like with this administration's interest in sharing the natural gas wealth?
Well, natural gas has excess supply. When we go to drill a well, in most cases, you get oil, crude oil, but you also get nat gas. If you're not on a pipeline, you can't do anything with that nat gas. I speak of this from personal experience, having owned a couple of wells. So nat gas is at a really low price at the moment, but again, supply is higher than demand. Fracking gets you a lot of gas. Fracking is also the big tool out in the Permian Basin in Texas for oil, right? It just increases the production from a given well. So it's just a tool to frack, to break up the soil, to break up the rock and get more production out of a well.
So that's interesting that you say the demand is low, but yet we know that we're urging our allies to lay off the Russian gas and oil. But you say that we have not been able to pick up the pace to the point where, we're not close to capacity, right?
Well, supply and demand is all local. So where is it produced? What does it take to ship it? And where is it going to be consumed? If you're in the U.S., that's easy. If you're in Europe, the only way to ship natural gas, or what is called LNG, liquefied natural gas, high compression, very dangerous. It's dangerous to build the plants. You build ships, have those big round spheres on them. And again, regulatory environment things. The big thing about regulations is it slows up. It slows capitalism. What makes capitalism is I open a store, people come in, I sell. Very transactional, very quick. If they quit buying, I close the store, move someplace else. Billions of dollars to build infrastructure to move natural gas. It's not cheap and it takes years. Even without regulations, it takes years. But the regulatory burden against refining, against transporting fossil fuels, we just have had such a culture that somehow fossil fuels is evil and windmills and,
I think it's changing, Gary. I think it's changing, don't you?
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is definitely quite a bit because one, the cost factor. When you make somebody's electricity go up, price go up, then they're not so excited about windmills. But in Texas, we have so many windmills you can't even imagine. And it mostly was a tax ploy. They could get the money to invest in them. They're all over West Texas. It's funny. You'd think you're in California.
Yeah, I hear that. But wind doesn't produce like it was supposed to produce. Like we're looking at New Jersey and Long Island with all these windmills now offshore. And lastly, Gary, I understand that for oil and gas producers, $54 per gallon per barrel is what you guys want. You don't want it to go too low. And obviously, too high, it hurts too many. So what is the number?
There's not an actual number. There is a range. I mean, if it drops back down into the 40s, then it's not profitable for big oil companies to produce and refine, right? Bring it out of the ground. So they leave it sitting in the ground. Same as I have half my family are farmers, right? We've regulated farm production forever. They pay my uncles to not grow corn. They pay them to dump milk out, to not end up with too much production on the market. We don't have that in oil and gas, right? Other than I went through a long time ago when oil and gas crashed from in the 40s down to $8 and $10 a barrel. So me and all the other people like me became unemployed. That lasted for a really long time. So the oil companies are not going to allow themselves to be put in that circumstance again. So you just kind of slow down production, speed it up. But again, it's all relative. I mean, the price on gasoline goes up, goes down. As it dropped, some of the states, in my opinion, took advantage of it to just add into the taxes because they could keep the price where it was and benefit from getting taxes on it. Taxes are supposed to be road use. That's not where the taxes go.
Right. We should look into that. We should ask people how much, and the least person to blame is really the gas station owner. The previous administration was blaming the gas station owners.
Gas station owner has no control over anything. I had an uncle who had a gas station. Price goes up. He has to pay whatever the market charges, but there's like 6 stages to get from the ground all the way to a gas station. And 4 of them are transportation, just moving the product through its stages. So it's the long supply chain. Every segment of it causes the price to go up.
All right, Gary, so great that to have an expert dispel and give us the true story about what it takes to get energy in this country. Gary Bevers, thanks so much. President of Bevers & Company and Downstream Petroleum Solutions. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Brian. Nice to see you again.